For many, the process of research and development is all in the family. For the Curies, for Masters and Johnson, and so it was for Jacob and Wilhelm. They were scholars, researchers. Although they died while working on a 32-volume dictionary, a monument to their tireless scholarly efforts, it is another piece of research for which we remember them. They were boys in college, Jacob and Wilhelm, when their interest in history was first aroused. In a way, you might say they were the first psychological anthropologists, the first to explore the relation of folklore to human history. They perused the writings of Homer, presumably fiction, discovered their impact and the possible links to fact. Perhaps they decided other legends might shed new light on the greater story of man, the truth story. Some such legends had been previously collected, published, but many others had never been written down. This was the elusive category called oral tradition, and only a few aged peasants here and there remembered them. When they died, the stories, some dating back thousands of years, would die with him. So when Jacob was 22 and Wilhelm 21, the two set out to record these legends, to seek their tellers before their stories vanished forever. These young men were scholars, remember, and their quest was one of historical relevance. So they were perhaps at first amazed by what they found at the beginnings of their research. But then the chore began to cheer them with the passing of each day. The people they met proved most interesting indeed. A shepherd was happy to spend an afternoon spinning old yarns for a bottle of wine. An old cavalry sergeant come upon hard times told a few more in return for a patched pair of pants. One woman, living in a home for the aged, was hesitant to talk about them. If she were overheard telling her stories to anyone but children, they might lock her up for a madwoman, she said. So Wilhelm got a friend to take his children as an audience for the old woman, while Wilhelm listened, took notes from behind the curtain. The best story source turned out to be a tailor's wife. Not only did she tell her stories well, but she told them each time in exactly the same words. If she spoke too quickly and was asked to repeat, she would retell them slowly, without a change. After 5 hard but happy years, Jacob and Wilhelm had collected 86 stories, but at the last they were unable to draw any particular historical significance from them. So the manuscripts were shelved, and might still be there today were it not for a friend who discovered them and insisted they be published. Arrangements were made for a printer in Berlin. A few days before Christmas of 1812, the first edition of Jacob and Wilhelm's stories went on sale. Expecting so little, they accepted no money at first, and at last took only a pittance. At no time in their subsequent careers as librarians and professors did they have a year's income equivalent to more than $5,000. And yet their little book of stories would one day sell 1 billion copies, and 20,000 editions would be translated into 50 languages, 40 countries. Today, a century and a half later, their little volume is second only to the Bible as most famous, most widely read, most generally remembered. They were brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm. Like George and Ira, Wilbur and Orville, they kept it all in the family. But such was the magnitude of Jacob and Wilhelm's last name that you only remember them by it. And if historical relevance of their first work together less than pleased them, their stories had since pleased 150 years of children. Stories like Hansel and Gretel, and Snow White, and Cinderella, and Tom Thumb. For the book they call Tales for Children and the Hearth, you know as Grimm's Fairy Tales. And now you know the Brothers Grimm and the rest of the story.